Welcome to the Extraordinary Podcast, where we identify God's uncommon work in common life. Recognizing God's work requires intentionality, but articulating it motivates and inspires. Don't forget to subscribe to never miss an episode. In today's episode, I have a conversation with Kathy Clark about how God can use frustrating or even undesirable circumstances for His glory. And so we explore God's peace, His grace, and how He can use our experiences for others. So let's get in the episode with Kathy today. Kathy, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
This is episode 3, and we're excited to have you and hear just how God has impacted you. So thank you for being here today. And as we start, I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about your journey. When did you first come to know Jesus, and you know, was there a time where your commitment to Jesus increased?
Mm-hmm. When I was a child, I did attend Sunday school, but I really didn't know Jesus. So as I got older, life went on, and then I met Randy, and we just felt that that we were missing something in our lives, and we had family who lived up around Joliet area, and they were attending a Nazarene church, and they would talk about their church family there and how they felt like they were a part of something so special. And so Randy and I started searching, and we started going to churches, and they came for one Thanksgiving, and we were talking about how we really wanted to start going, and so we got on the internet and found Burlington First Church, and so Randy and I started coming here, and that was in November of 2004, and so we started coming, and we've been here ever since. In January of 2005, Randy and I were in Carol Vance's Sunday school class, and Randy started asking all kinds of questions about salvation, and so that day after Sunday school we went to the altar, and we were saved January 23rd, 2005, and then we were baptized in February 20th, 2005. So that's when we first come to know the Lord, and we were saved. As far as when I felt like that my first several years that, you know, I was a baby Christian, and that I still believed that I had to do things, different works and stuff, to make the Lord maybe proud of me, or just, you know, made me a better Christian. And so anyway, we were very involved in a lot of things. And then I, about 10 years later, in 2014, I had a health scare. And I think after that is when I really started to grow in the Lord. And so that's kind of how things started for us. So,
well, that's a wonderful story. So thank you for sharing. Now you've served in the church in a wide variety of capacities, and I don't think you want to just list them all right now. But do you have a couple that you like to highlight? Maybe some of your favorite or more impactful ones that you served in?
Some of them I was involved in children's ministries. Mm-hmm. Randy and I did preschool Bible school, which he was real excited about that. And then we also did 3rd and 4th grade caravan. We also were with another couple starting with Love Thy Neighbor. We were part of that, starting Love Thy Neighbor up.
Can you explain Love Thy Neighbor?
Love Thy Neighbor is a food box ministry where we provide food boxes to people in our community and in our church. And we started that, probably it was around 2000, maybe 8 or 9, and it just grew. That was a pretty important ministry for us. We also were involved in outreach. We're part of the outreach committee, and we did things out in the community. As far as outreach, we'd go to different areas and provide a meal or play games or just do things out in the community. Mm-hmm. Also, we Shared Blessings, which is our clothing ministry at the church. I helped with that. Missions, I was part of missions. I was the NMI president. We did a lot of work and witness trips. We also had the corn ministry that we do in the summer, the sweet corn ministry, which is used for missions throughout the states, globally. We don't keep any of that here, but it's used out in the wherever it's needed. So
the kind of the two categories you mentioned, you've been involved in several different areas of children's ministry, and a lot of missions type stuff,
yes.
Of whether it's serving or organizing things that are not just for the local organization.
Yes.
And so that's a passion of yours, and one that inspires me. So I'm grateful for your leadership and the different ways that you have served, served Jesus.
Thank you.
You alluded a moment ago about your health scare in 2014. Could you expand on that just a little bit?
Yes. What had happened, and I felt that this was a way for, I don't know, I'll talk about that later, but so in 2014, I had decided to go have a checkup, and I hadn't had one in many years, and so when I went, the doctor said that probably at my age, because I was I was 50, over 50, and that I should start having certain things done, because after that age, you're more apt to have things happen. So she was referring to a colonoscopy. So I set that up and I went, and I was all, we'll get this done and be done with it, and then every 10 years I'll have that done. Well, when I went, they found a polyp, which can become cancerous, and then of course you can develop colon cancer. Well, I had one that was too large to remove during the colonoscopy, so they were going to have to surgically remove it. And in the meantime, they do a biopsy and come to find out it was cancerous. So right away, they scheduled me to go in, and on May 14th, 2014, I went in to have a colon resection, where they remove so much of my intestine and then put it back together. In doing that, they also biopsy the area of where the polyp was, and so I had to wait a couple of days to hear about how that went, and the doctor came back and said that was the first time in the history that he had been doing surgeries that it had come back where it was only at stage A. Which is the beginning stages of the cancer. And so they were able to get it all, and so I should be okay. So that was wonderful news, and I thanked God for that, because it could have been so much worse. About 4 days later, I started to feel really bad. I was still in the hospital, and by the time they were able to figure out what was going on, I was deathly ill, and my resection had come apart, and I had become septic. And so I was rushed immediately to the ICU. They did NG tube. There were other things that had to be done that were to help with this infection that had spread throughout my body. I was put on a ventilator. I was medically put in an induced coma. I was put on a ventilator for at first 12 days. I had an open wound on my tummy because I had to go back and forth for several days into surgery to have things done. I had to be put on, my vital organs started to shut down, so they had to put me on I believe it's called CRTT. It's continuous dialysis, because that helps your heart from overworking during something so stressful as that. And so because of my kidneys starting to shut down, they had to put me on that. And then after that, I was on dialysis every other day as time went on. I also had the blood flow, because my vital organs were shutting down, the blood flow from the lower part of my body, my extremities, were going to those vital organs to keep them working. So part of my lower body, my legs and feet were black, and they had to, eventually I lost the tip of one of my toes because of that. I had several surgeries over that first week in ICU of going back and forth to take care of different things, of cleaning things and that. So I was in ICU for 3 weeks. They took me off the ventilator. I started to aspirate, so they had to put me back on for a couple of days. And then I was able to come off completely. And of course, one of the things I feel that God did during that time was I don't remember much of any of that at all. And I believe that's just a way to protect us from all the trauma. Anyway, I was in there for 3 weeks in ICU, and then I developed muscle atrophy. So eventually I had to learn how to walk all over again, to feed myself all over again. I couldn't move too many parts of my body right away. I was moved to, after that 3 weeks, I was moved to ACU, was there another 3 weeks, and then eventually moved to an assisted living facility for a few weeks, and then home, where I had home health care, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and an amazing husband who took care of me. So anyway, and then for a couple of years after that, there were different things that were going on that I had several surgeries within that 2-year period. I had to do hyperbarics, which I only know how to explain it as it's a big tube that you go into for a couple hours, and it's 100% oxygen, and it helps the healing process. I had to do that. I developed infections to where I had to go to the day hospital for 45 days straight every day, including holidays, to have IV vancomycin, antibiotics to help with the infections and stuff. So, and then I was on my way to healing. So, yeah.
From start to finish, I don't know if finish is the right word, but how long did it take you to get back to normal, or whatever normal was after that?
Another thing I wanted to share is too, one of this, I'm sorry, but this I thought was important. There were one of the surgeries that I was in that first week, my heart stopped, and they had to do, they called a code blue, and they had to do CPR. And so my husband and my family were in the waiting room, and that was very traumatic for them because they heard the code blue, and Randy just said that he just dropped to his knees and just prayed that everything would be okay. But probably start to finish, I would say there were complications for quite a long time, but December of 2014, which is probably about 6 months, I think, I was able to be up, and I was able to walk, moving around. I was able to be more active, and just was kind of normal.
Yeah.
But again, there were several things. There was about a year later, I went back to have another surgery done. Well, I leaked again, so I ended up having another wound vac. That was something I had to wear for many months because the wound had to heal from the inside out, and this wound vac was an amazing tool to help that move quicker. So I would say about 6 months before I was actually able to be more active.
Yeah.
So
to feel at least somewhat like you could do the normal things in life.
Yeah.
And so miraculously, you're living basically a normal life now. Like there may be certain things I'm unaware of, but for as traumatic of an experience that was, God saw you through it, and you alluded briefly to Randy. I know you have expressed several times how great he was through all that, and so I know you have a wonderful husband who's caring in several ways on that. So obviously that was a physical issue that you were dealing with. Has that impacted you spiritually?
When I first got home, I can remember many times in the hospital, people saying to us, all the people that we came into contact with, many times things were said to us and to me about, I don't know how you have faith like that. I don't know, if I could have faith like that, knowing, what you had been through. And I just, and I'm like, I couldn't think of any other way to be. I knew, that God was there taking care of the situation. But when I did get home, sometimes the enemy messes with us. And I had a lot of time by myself and a lot of time to think. And this is when I felt like my spiritual life began to grow, because I couldn't understand why God would let something like that happen to me. Why? I'm very involved. I do this at the church. I'm out in my community. I do this, and I just couldn't figure out why would he let that happen. And so at some point I became a little angry of like, I don't understand. Well, I had been so busy doing stuff and thinking that's what I needed to do for God to, I don't know so much to love me, but he would be proud. I don't even know what my thinking was. But then as I thought more about it, and Randy started a Bible study that he was going to in the town where we lived, because we weren't here in Burlington, and it was so far for us, and with the condition I was in, we weren't able to travel over here. So Randy became part of a Bible study in the town that we lived in, and one of the gentlemen was talking to him about a woman named Johnny Erickson Tata, and he brought home a devotion, and he asked me if I wanted to, look at it, and I just at that point was like, no, I am not interested. I don't want to hear about it, because I had, the enemy was just working on me. And so anyway, one day I picked it up. I'm trying to make a long story short. I picked it up and I started reading her story. And I was like, I just started sobbing, and I just asked the Lord to forgive me, because who was I to think that I didn't have to go through things in life? I mean, we all do. And so that was where I started. Really, I got into the Word, and I had a lot of time, and sometimes I feel the Lord allows things to happen to us, maybe to slow us down, so we can focus on Him and what's, His plan is for us, and how much He loves. And I get emotional still. It's not as like I used to, but how much He loves us, and no matter what we're going through, He's right there with us to see us through it, and that all His promises are good, and that's just what we have to focus on when we're going through stuff like this, to know no matter what, He's there. And we don't understand what's going on, and we don't understand why, but He does. And so that was when when I really started to grow, I feel, in my walk, my spiritual walk. So sorry, I probably got lit off. Sorry.
So as you mentioned, you had time, but we all go through things. Mm-hmm. We can sometimes feel like we're alone, or people aren't experiencing the same things we're going through. So whether it's something that's similar to yours or another situation, if somebody's going through a really tough time, can you speak to them of words of encouragement?
All I can say is that God loves us, and just because we're going through something bad, we're not being punished. We're not, He's not mad at us, but we have to trust Him, and knowing that whatever the plan is, what we're going through is part of that plan, and that we just have to, we someday will know, whether it's now or it's later on when we meet Him in heaven, eventually we will understand what we're going through. And maybe it is where He's using us as a witness to others, for them to see how we react to the things that we go through in our life, and that we just trust Him and love Him. And that's my advice, is just to know. And and it's hard sometimes when you're going through that to think like that. Do not let the enemy take over your brain and make you feel like the Lord does not love you, because He does. He loves you so much, more than anyone else has ever loved you. And I think that's what we have to remember and trust in that. So.
Yeah, that's a good reminder that no matter where we are, God loves us, and more than we can imagine, mm-hmm. and He hasn't forgotten us or forsaken us. And it's so encouraging to hear your story, and it's easy to be on this side of your story and say, God did all of this. As you were going through some of the brunt of the recovery, Is that when you got the Johnny Erickson Tata stuff, or was that was in the middle? So that's what spoke to you of that's kind of a spark that helped you start digging deeper. Because like I said, it's easier on this side to say, well, God brought you through, but it's real hard in the midst of that storm to be encouraged. So thank you for sharing that story and being open of how others can experience Jesus' love and his promise, even during the midst of difficult times. Is there, moving forward, we don't know the future. Is there anything that's giving you hope right now? Because we live in a world of discouragement. And maybe not a world of discouragement, maybe that's too harsh to say, but just something that maybe something God has laid on your heart recently that's whether it's encouraging you or maybe it could be encouraging to somebody else.
Just that I know that he keeps all his promises and that he loves me through everything, and that I just have that hope that someday I'm going to be there in heaven with him, and that's my hope. And that I will always have faith knowing that. So
yeah, that's a good reminder that God will restore all things, and that whatever's broken in our life, he'll fix. Growing up, there's a woman in my home church who was short. Well, she still is, but she talked about how when she gets to heaven, she's going to be 6 feet tall, so she can reach the top shelf. I'm not sure if that's theologically sound, but the fact of the matter is, we won't face those problems, and it's exciting for the fact that God will help us with that, and as I'm so challenged by your story of just your attitude. I'm sure your attitude wasn't always this way during that time. Are there ways that you felt God help you overcome some of whether it was an attitude, whether it was a feeling, the emotions of just feeling squeezed in by situations that you can't control?
I think I had such a peace after. Originally, like I said, I was angry and I couldn't understand. And then once I did, I had such a peace come over me, and I felt like the Lord used this to slow me down some, so I could focus on Him. But He also put people in my life that were there for me, who prayed for me. I mean, we had people praying from places I don't even know. Because of social media and stuff, people were aware. My daughter started a Caring Bridge page, and people were hundreds of thousands of people were looking there and praying, and I just felt, that that was just encouraging to me to know that there were people praying for me, and knowing that, it could have been so much worse, because if the Lord, if I would not have went to the doctor to know that I needed this done, I would have developed colon cancer, and I probably would not be here today. So the Lord just moved me in the directions I need to be, so it could be so much worse. I might have never recovered. There were so many things. I have some physical limitations, but nothing compared to what it could have been. So those are just things that have just encouraged me and given me hope, knowing that He was able to do so much for me. So,
the power of prayer, as you mentioned, I think sometimes we neglect or forget. But I also think, you say you're angry or discouraged. I think it's important that we admit that, and that it's okay when we're going through tough times to say, man, I'm frustrated or beside myself. Just something to acknowledge it, because to pretend like everything's okay is sometimes a fake facade.
And I think that's not a good witness to people, because if they feel like they can't get angry, why would they want to? I don't know. I mean, that's probably a simple way to look at it, but And that was my thing. Oh my goodness, you know. And I didn't share that for the longest time, except with Randy. You know, that I was angry because I thought that was wrong, and God would be mad at me because I was mad at him. And is he gonna? You know, I mean, just I can't even tell you all the thoughts that were going through my head back then. But then once it was just like he just spoke to me through Johnny, and I was just like, oh my goodness. And I couldn't get enough then. I was in his word every day. I had nothing but time because I was physically unable to do things by myself. And so when Randy would be gone, I had all the time to get into his word, and just felt, and I journaled and just read all kinds of materials, all her books. But anyway, it was just a difficult time. So,
and as I think about our conversation, it's just, you know, I came into this conversation approaching as, you know, the physical issues and the spiritual issues that God helped you with, but there were also the mental and the emotional ones that I think sometimes we neglect a little bit, and maybe not neglect, but we forget about them, and how important that God provides a holistic approach and a holistic healing. It's not just healing here and then everything else we forget about. So that, thank you for sharing. That has just brought perspective to me, and I appreciate your heart and how God has just seen you through, and so I just want to say thank you for sharing. Is there anything else that you would like to share today?
I do. Some of the things that I have had, like back then with being angry, but as time went on, I did suffer from PTSD. I do have, I get a lot nervous when I have doctor's appointments, when I have procedures that have to be done. One of them is a colonoscopy. I have to have them done every 3 years because of the cancer, and so, which is okay, but still I do get anxiety over that. When loved ones have things going on, procedures, and I get all nervous, but I know the Lord has it under control. But I still do get, I do have, there was some lung damage done because of being on the ventilator for so long. Also, I do have trouble with memory and remembering long-term things, and that's because of how long I was on anesthetic and the medications that were used. So, and plus just getting older, but a lot of it was from that. So, you know, again, I am so thankful to him that I am here and that I am able to be physically active, because there was a point where I thought, oh my goodness, am I ever going to be able to walk again? How am I ever going to get back to, and he was there, and he guided me through it. So.
And if he can do it for you, he can do it for others.
That's right.
And not necessarily, maybe God's healing would be better. Maybe it won't be as complete. But he hasn't forgotten us. He's with us, helping us along the way. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
I've been inspired. I know your words will be very beneficial for others who, even those who know your story, I'm sure, will just the Holy Spirit will work in their hearts. So thank you for being here. You know, as we just explore how God does remarkable things.
Yes.
So I just want to say thank you for being here on our podcast today.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this podcast. Be on the lookout for how God does uncommon work in common life. And please subscribe to never miss an episode.